Hi and welcome back to Tales Against Humanity, / I Don't Work Here Lady. In today's episode, NINTEN-DON'T WORK HERE. I'm just here for the conjunction. Or how I ended up as a tour operator at an event. An employer mistakes me for an employer. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. NINTEN-DON'T WORK HERE. So, this just happened to me, and I can't express how good my heart feels about having had a good experience with some customers. Not to mention at a place I don't work at. So, I was out at the oh-so-famous Malwart looking around for some Nintendo products. Specifically, amiibos. For those who don't know what they are, they're basically plastic figurine toys that have coating inside them, and, depending on the game you're playing, if they are compatible with it, they provide special perks to the game you play. For me, I'm a Super Smash Bros. Fan, and I was looking to see if my local Malwart had anything to check out. Spoilers, they didn't. But me being me, I was busy perusing the aisle they had for Nintendo items, and as I was looking down it, I was waiting for this one woman who was really invested on her phone and looking at the games that were on display behind the glass. I didn't mind waiting. Heck, I'm 6 feet 3 inches and standing up straight. All I need to do to see the rest of the small aisle's worth of contents is stretch a little. But there's just one part of the aisle that I can't see because part of the display was set up different. So, I attempt to speak to the woman, trying to get her attention. From the way she's standing, looking back and forth on her phone as she's likely at a fair 5 feet 3 inches to 5 feet 5 inches. She is lost and doesn't know what she's even getting. So I ask my question to her, and the conversation goes something like this. Me, drawing breath to speak and try my best to be polite. Hi, I don't mean to bother you. Her, in a panic, oh. I'm sorry, I'm in your way. I'll move, sorry. Me, waving my hand to dismiss her fears about being a disturbance. Oh, don't worry at all. I was just going to ask you. You know how some game franchises have small little figurines? Do you see any in this aisle? They should be called amiibo. I'm trying to find one. Her, after taking a second to check for me, No, I'm sorry. I don't see any. I take this as a polite exchange and merely shrug. I didn't think that the location would have any. It's 3 days until Christmas, what can I expect? So I start to tell her that she has been really nice to help me, and I start to try and walk past her. But then she starts to ask me something back. Her, can I maybe ask you something? I'm super lost, and I'm trying to buy something for my daughter's kids. One boy, one girl. Me, having nothing better to do and being happy to help someone if I can. Oh, sure. I like helping. What's your question? What's up? She starts to go into an explanation for a few minutes, and while I'm talking to her it becomes clear that she's shopping for a 9-year-old and a kid that's around 5 or 6. She never really made it clear, but apparently the kid is so young that he doesn't sound like the type to think about putting his Switch down gently. I recommended she also get a screen protector for that kid. Just to be safe. Eventually, as we are nearing the halfway point of the conversation, as I've realized we've talked for probably a half hour, she gets the information from her daughter about what games that her son and daughter have, and I start to explain the difference between the many Mario games that are on display. One's Mario Kart, one's a bundle of Mario games, one lets you make Mario stages. She was very attentive to what I had to say. I couldn't have been more eager to make sure that what she chose was the right gift. She then proceeds to move out of the way for another woman to walk down the aisle, who I'll simply call W2. W2 starts to ask if she can interrupt, apologizing for interrupting us before she asks for my help. And here's where I say it. Sure. Oh, but I should mention really quick. I don't work here, I just know a lot about Nintendo. Both the first woman and W2 are surprised. I thought you worked here. You were super enthusiastic about helping. Yeah, hun, you're wearing a lanyard. I start, pointing out that the lanyard I'm wearing has the design for a nearby medical marijuana dispensary across the river. I got it from my mother, she works there. Haha, I don't think that the employees from Malwart would be letting me wear this on the floor, do you? Also, they wear vests nowadays. They both laugh and realize their mistakes, but they're also very happy that I was willing to go out of my way to see that they were helped. With how little employees were around on the floor, I just felt like having fun talking about the differences between games and finding out what kind of video game would be a good choice to buy for a little boy and girl. And you know what? I wouldn't mind doing it again. I'm just here for the conjunction. Or how I ended up as a tour operator at an event. I never thought I'd have a story for this sub because my usual I don't work here lady is just typically when I'm wandering around the shops, but nothing comes of it when I'm asked. But I think this one is worthy, just not explosive. This happened on Monday evening as it was the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and I desperately wanted to see it. A once-in-a-lifetime event, who wouldn't? In the morning, I went to my city's only telescope store and bought myself a brand new Maxitov scope to view it with. I'd been intending on getting a planetary scope for a while, then went home over an hour away to pack my stuff and wait for the event that evening which had been advertised on the store's website. I figured it would just be a bunch of nerds getting together, everyone setting up their telescopes, and enjoying the conjunction on the beach with the sun setting over the water, and just having a great time. Yeah, not so much. I didn't realize it was a semi-organized public event. I picked up hubby from work then went straight up to the beach over an hour away, excitedly got my gear set up including my new scope and stood there waiting for the sun to set and the first twinkling lights to come out just so I could get my telescope calibrated and ready for viewing. Then people started to arrive, lots of people. People started coming up to me and of course I got excited and started talking about the conjunction. There were a good 10 to 15 other telescopes set up around me. I figured a few passers-by might be interested as well, and I'm always happy to share my love of astronomy with other people. The sky gets dark. I've agreed to let a few people I'm talking to look through my scope once I've had a look and hubby has too. I managed to spot Jupiter and Saturn in the distance over the water, and I give up on doing any alignment and just go straight for the main show. I've got a photographer in my face taking photos while I'm trying to get the planets in my field of view. Hubby's also grouching at the photographer for not asking permission, but I ignored him, and then success. I have Jupiter and Saturn both in my eyepiece, and they look magnificent. I move back and let hubby take a look while I get a different lens to increase the magnification, then I look up. And there's a huge queue of people wanting to look through my brand new telescope. I adjusted the scope, got everything sorted, took one look at hubby and grabbed the pamphlets I had in the bottom of my eyepiece bag for the local observatory left over from another event I'd taken my other scope to. I wasn't officially part of this event and people did find out that I was there with my private telescope, but I would feel bad for turning them away. Especially with a crowd of 2,500 people trying to get a view through about 10 to 15 telescopes, and apparently mine was one of the ones giving the best view. So hubby and I both fell into telescope operator mode since we volunteer at an observatory, and started talking to people. We were dishing out facts about Jupiter and Saturn, answering questions as best we could and talking about the fact that we hadn't seen a conjunction like this in 400 years. We also handed out pamphlets to encourage them to come up for a tour of the observatory, while everyone was taking turns looking through my telescope, and we were adjusting the eyepiece so everyone could view the conjunction comfortably. We had a ball and didn't get to see a whole lot of the planets through the scope, but I think being able to share such an amazing event with people was even better than spending the whole night huddled around a telescope. I'm also glad that we've got no community transition of COVID-19 as there was no social distancing to speak of, but everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, and I made some new friends as well as getting some pointers from the lovely owner of the telescope store. There were no yelling people, everyone was polite and friendly. It was just one of those I don't work here, but I'll happily share my passion with you situations, and I would definitely do it again. An employer mistakes me for an employer. I often think back on this story and figure I'd share it here. Backstory: there seems to be an aura about me, or something, that says security, despite being a 5 feet 5 inches female and 110 pounds soaking wet. I'm not exactly sure what it is, maybe it's my choice of clothing, I dunno. Some people have told me it's probably my semi-permanent serious expression. I actually have worked security, but it didn't last long only because the company I worked for went under. One time 2 guys were fighting at an event. I was working security, and I was babysitting one of the guys while another security guard babysat the other one in another room until the police would show up. The entire time the guy was profusely apologizing to me for his behavior. I thought it was kinda amusing. Once I was outside my favorite nightclub. I wasn't really in the mood to be clubbing, so I decided to just hang out with the bouncers outside for a while. I was friends with all the staff at that club, and often I'd be hanging out with the staff after closing and wrestling with the bouncers. Both the bouncers that night were well over 6 foot and buffed as heck. At some point one of the bouncers said to the other, "Isn't it great to have me here? Nobody dares to have an attitude problem while she's here," and the other one agreed. I'll admit, it was a huge ego booster. Security jobs aside, I always seem to be asked if I work at whatever place I go to, but to this day I've never been asked by a Karen. So I don't really have any juicy stories to tell about that. I guess, in a way, a security guard would be a pretty good job for me despite me attempting to avoid conflict at all cost. Because everything always seems to run smoothly when I'm around and there's never any conflict. Although, those who know me wouldn't care one way or the other. A friend of mine once described me as ice on the outside, but teddy bear on the inside. That's actually a direct quote. So on to my story. I guess it's not very long though. And it doesn't include a lady, despite the name of this subreddit. During the night, in my home country, security guards man shifts at 24H gas stations and stores because of drunk and drugged up idiots roaming around. Security guards not working that moment would get some benefits at each place, like free coffee, bathroom usage, etc. One Saturday night I went to one of the 24H stores with my friend, to get some sweets for the night. My friend was the ultimate girly girl while I'm more of a tomboy. I was wearing my usual camo cargo pants and a black windstopper, pretty much what I always wore. I asked the security guard at the register if I could use the bathroom. My bladder rarely ever goes off when I'm not home, but when it goes off, it needs to be emptied ASAP. The security guard said, "Sure, it's right inside the staff area." I went and used the bathroom. When I was finished, my friend told me that she also needed to use the bathroom, so I guided her to the bathroom. I figured since I was allowed to use it, she must be allowed to use it too. But nope. After my friend came out of there, the security guard told me that the bathroom was for staff only. Oops, now I get it, he thought I was a security guard. I didn't dare tell him that I actually wasn't a security guard. I figured it would be better for his job security not to know. He assumed I never claimed to be. So, ain't my fault, right? When I've written it down and read it over, it does seem to me to be a very boring story. At least compared to all the other stories on here.